This is Abnormal Entertainment.
I am a real American, fight for the rights of every man. I am a real American, fight for what's right, fight for your life.
You're listening to the No Cry Zone, a progressive political podcast on the Abnormal Entertainment Network.
And welcome to the No Cry Zone. I was just saying that there's so much stupidity happening in the world, and most of it is centering around our president.
The vast majority.
Whether he did it or someone is doing it to him.
It is connected to him, yes. This has been an interesting day. Just today has been an interesting day.
What do you do, John?
Well, it started with Covfefe.
After midnight,
when
so today.
he texted. He meant to say the word coverage, talking about negative press coverage, but he said Covfefe, and then just hit tweet. And first of all, I want to point out again that Twitter is a platform that has spell check. So if you spell something on there that does not in the database, it puts a little red line underneath it to say, "Hey, are you sure this is what you would like to say?" Mm-hmm. But obviously, he had to wipe. And he was too busy to, so he just said that tweet.
Well, I think he just didn't care. This is the same guy that won't read, security briefings.
Right, he needs graphics.
Red lines are for humans, not immortals.
He needs killer graphics for his, you're like, oh my God.
I'm going to send you some killer graphics on how to spell.
So, here's the thing. Here's what I imagine on that. I imagine that when there is a security briefing, like, all the generals and the actual people in charge, I'm praying, are in the, in the ready room, getting the actual briefing. He's off in a side room watching a Tom and Jerry cartoon, thinking that this is the briefing.
It could happen.
And thinking that the peasants love it.
Oh.
All the peasants love me.
Resoundingly love him, according to Sean Spicer. Mm-hmm. People resoundingly voted for him.
Politico just announced that their latest polls on his numbers, he has dipped below 40%. He's like 38.2 in disapproval rating. But there is an approval rating attached to him at about 44%, which is the impeachment one.
Yeah.
There's a 44% impeachment approval rating in the U.S. right now.
And he's working hard to keep it going. He's...
Too bad, Europeans can't vote in that. Because he's just pissed off all of Europe.
Yeah,
even Britain. They're not even part of Europe anymore. They're like, we're just looking, and you suck.
Even the Brexiters, I think, are like, oh dear God,
what did we fucked up, but they really.
I mean, really? So he's pulling out of the Paris Climate Accord.
There's that. That's today.
Saying today that he basically the word for the administration was he's going to pull out of it. And he tweeted not that long ago, that he's looking at it and make America great again.
That makes the three countries, Syria, Nicaragua, and us.
Yeah. Meanwhile,
bastions of freedom.
China and the EU took the opportunity to both then respond to say they are reaffirming their commitment to the Paris Accord.
China!
Okay. Both reaffirming their leadership in the world. As we pull back, as we retrench from the world, as we abdicate our leadership and our responsibilities, and with responsibilities, by the way, come as well, you get benefits.
Right.
Yes.
And as we abdicate our responsibility, we also abdicate our benefits that we get from this system. There was an interesting statement that was made by both McMaster, the National Security Advisor, and Mattis, the Defense Secretary, talking about Trump's. I like that.
Trimp.
Huh.
Shrimp. Shrimp on a Barbie. Oh. Jumbo shrimp.
Talking about Trump's recent, overseas trip, and they were saying that they were basically saying that that his view of the world is one in which there are no alliances, and that the U.S. has much more to gain by going it alone than being a part of these alliances. That we have unique advantages that are handcuffed, essentially, when we take part as an alliance or with allies or any kind of grouping, so that we're better off to go it alone. And this is this is a pre-World War II view of the world. Mm-hmm. This is not just a pre-Obama view of the world. This is a pre-World War II view of the world.
Well, this is a Donald Trump view of the world.
Yeah.
Is the rest of the world, besides his inner circle of family, are peasants. Some peasants he needs to rule the other peasants and make him money. But when it comes down to it, it's his view is going to be what he decides everything on. There is no outside information that can penetrate to Trump and change his oligarchy views of the world. And you mentioned that we lost benefits. I mean, we lost power, we lost security, we lost 50 years of building these relationships, putting our bases around the world, putting our message around the world. If you wanted to be, a patriotic American and have this be around the world and fight your brown people of the world, this is how you do it. You do not pull back every diplomat. You do not pull out of every deal. You do not do what this man is doing, and why people can't understand that this is exactly what Russia wants out of the United States.
Yep.
In the end game, this is just all leading right to Russia picking up the slack, or China, or the EU. All these things that we've worked hard to secure our benefits, to secure our security.
Yeah,
all of those things are
win-
gone in less than 3 months, less than 4 months.
The biggest winner of the breakup of NATO, or the de-escalation of NATO and the breakup of the EU, that's Russia.
Yeah.
Russia wins both of those. China wins both of those.
Yep.
They win. We lose. We talk about putting military bases around the world, or having this global military, if you will. And there's a lot of people that would say, well, we spend all our money around the world. Why should we do that? And it's not just military, by the way. All the financial aid we offer across the world. And it always amazes me how people they're always just like, oh, why do we give money to those people when we should be doing shit at home? And you go, you realize the percentage of, when you look at financial aid that we give around the world as a percentage of our budget, it ain't nothing. Mm-hmm. It's less than 1%. It's nothing. We can do both, by the way. I mean, that's the argument that they constantly want to get us into an argument, and it's got to be this or this. And it's like, no, we can do both.
Yep.
And
people don't understand giant numbers.
They don't understand anything about globalism in the sense of what we get out of it, these benefits that you're talking about. So, for instance, the financial gain we get, that's an investment. When we spend money on the financial aid to these nations, or providing them military security, what we get back is that leadership role that we have, and even just in terms of finance, the primacy of the American dollar, which is now begun. It was already underway, but this is accelerating it. It's being drained of its value. We're no longer the global currency, the go-to currency any longer. And when that happens, we're all going to pay for that. And this is all part of that process. It's just incredibly... I don't even say it's short-sighted, because it's just no-sighted. It's blind. It's blind stupidity is what this is.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody. Good night.
It's entirely depressing. But I think I'm pleased that there's responsible leaders in the world still. I think Angela Merkel is pretty responsible. I don't agree with her on a multitude of things. But Germany stepped up. And in large part, they've done so, and they're going to be successful at it because they remember their past. Mm-hmm. They're one of the few nations that actually remember their past and don't want to repeat it.
Right. And a little side note, I kind of saw this on the internet. They're not allowed to fly swastikas in Germany, so their white supremacist groups fly our Confederate flag. I just thought that was nice.
Of course they do.
Yeah, they can fly that. And that's their little thing.
What does that mean, Rob?
That means they're our best exporters. Still our favorite import.
Right.
And that trio, Canada, France, and Germany, that was a pretty badass looking trio there walking down the street. And then France their new guy not shaking Trump's hand right away.
Well, did you see? Yeah, how he diverted right to Merkel.
Right to Merkel and Trudeau.
It was a nice. It was a dick move, but I was like,
It was a good dick.
it was a good dick.
It was
move.
earned.
Yeah.
It was
Well,
an earned dick.
yeah,
move.
I mean,
but
He
that's,
went in order of power.
and you go to cost, John. The one way that saves countless millions of dollars around the world is aid. If you do not offer aid to people who are starving, they have to migrate. If you do not offer security to people who are oppressed, then you have to go in and fight their war for them. If all of these things boil down to, if you just gave them aid in the first place, you would have saved boatloads of money.
We can look
in
at
the
it
long run.
as like preventative care.
Yeah.
If you provide access to aid to other countries, then they don't have to go to the emergency room later, and you're paying a bigger bill.
And this was an Obama thing. I mean, his long game book was a lot about this. Was that he did not want to be that big stick around the world. He wanted to be the one that people came to with their problem.
Like the Godfather.
Now, and let us be
True.
let us be the head of the table, basically,
I
which
always
is why
said
the
that.
Paris thing is so crazy. Why would you? I mean, we had the head of the table. We had it. It was ours. It was
Right.
ours to take, and he just gave it away. Another
Gave.
power.
Well, not even just gave, just shit it out.
Well, look, I think that there has to be there is a short-term financial gain for him and Trump Inc.
Yep.
By doing this. That's the real. He isn't doing it for any other reason. No, his main reason is because there's some financial gain for him doing this. Some way, somehow, he gains by this financially. I also think it's just him being a dick. I think it's because the Pope, because Angela Merkel, because Macron, and all these others said, please do not. To him, it's like, oh, then I'm going to do it.
It's because Macron squished his hand.
Yeah.
He's a dick.
Oh, that hurt.
I know. Our president is a giant fucking dick.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Well, he's,
not.
he is
I agree and you're not.
He's a little rich boy child, is what he is.
It's beyond that. He is that, yes. But this is beyond that.
President Fauntleroy?
He's a dick. He's just a little he's a punk dick. He's the kind of kid that you want to fucking punch him in the face.
He's the kind of guy I want to punch in the face.
I mean,
Him and Snyder still.
or decapitate and hold up bloody head off.
So do you guys
Too
get the
much?
feeling that
Never.
it's scary that half of our country voted for such a little person? Such
is
a
scary.
small
Yeah.
mind,
It's-
such a what? At one point, they must have just gone for he's a dick. I like him. He's
It
a
didn't,
dick.
but
Yeah.
it didn't come across
So-
as a dick to them. That's the thing. No, there was a populist run. It was all about populism, and I'm here to. And he lied. I'm here to take care of you and give you your jobs. And every place he went to, it was the same thing, just changing out the drapes. Coal miners, I'll bring mining jobs. VCR workers, we're bringing the tapes back. He'll just. It didn't matter.
Big rally of VCR workers.
All 7 of them. He'll pander to anyone. And so it didn't matter, and they bought into the populism, not seeing the scam for what it was. Because I don't think that they are necessarily bad people, they're just not very bright.
Not very sophisticated.
Yeah,
not at all.
no critical thinking skills, because we don't have that anymore.
And I think that, and we've seen a certain number of those have gone dark. In other words, there's
yeah.
a certain segment of people that they no longer
Like
talk.
Paul Wright.
They no longer are on the Trump train. They're no longer, whoop whoop, yeah. They just.
And the ones that are just the same loud ones that would have backed anyone who was an asshole.
It's the ones that are still out there, just absolutely like, yep, Trump's the man. Those are the guys I think who did vote him because he was a dick.
Right.
They did like the dick stuff. They did like the cruelty and the bullying, and they loved it.
They couldn't get enough dick. They want more dick. Dick, 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 dick.
David just did a dick dance.
You just did a dick dance. That's true.
Dicky McDick's
Well
hot.
seated. Well seated.
Oh yeah, go to Europe and give him some dick.
Oh my God. So
So what the hell does the Pope do anymore? Who's listening to the Pope? The
Catholics
seems like
aren't.
nobody.
That's a great
I
question.
see a lot of bumper stickers that are pretty anti-Pope.
Yeah, that's a great
I
great
know
question.
the Catholics too.
Oh
And
yeah.
I've seen the one that came out is you can't be Catholic and pro-life. I've seen that one a lot. And the Pope's not pro-life, but he's like much
You mean pro-choice?
pro-choice. Well, either way, I guess. And but he's not pro-choice, but he's very liberal in the life of the mother and things like that.
Well, and he said no, and that's a great question, Rob, about the
Who listens to
because
the
before it was you've heard how many centuries have we been listening to the infallibility of the Pope? The pontiff is infallible until he says shit we don't like. Then he's a dick, and we can put up bumper stickers saying "fuck you." And the thing is unlike said the pro-choice thing. I don't think he said he's against abortion, and that he is pro-life. What he did say was he said that. On the other hand, he understands that there is another side to this issue, and that he didn't feel that priests should hold back communion to people who believe otherwise. That's all he said. Now, in their world, that's a major, a treasonous act to go back on. But of course, everything he said, his whole tone, his whole attitude, has come really from the notion of Jesus the Lamb.
Yeah.
Jesus the Shepherd, to advance the causes of the poor, to take care of the poor. That part, and they're like, blah 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 blah. Can you stop talking about that shit? I gotta go get my Lexus, and they don't want to hear about it. And so
this is American Catholics we're talking about too.
largely,
I'm talking around the world, really. I mean, are there still?
Yeah, because the conservative, like the
South
biggest
America.
right now, the biggest growth of Catholicism is in Africa. In Asia, right now, and they're hardcore. They're conservatives.
Yeah, dude,
those
missionaries,
are real hardcore, and they don't like this Pope at all. They don't. They don't like softening. They don't like reaching across the aisle. No,
The South American Catholics do. South America is largely, if you're going to go by faith, is largely Catholic. And centering in Brazil being the biggest country. So there's support. I'm not sure about Europe.
Well,
the Irish.
Reason for my question is, don't you see this in 20 or 30 years with rhetoric like this? This turns into a religious war. I mean, a worldwide religious war.
we're kind of already in one.
I mean, you can really argue that point, but it's not quite worldwide. But I do think with rhetoric starting, we're having a ban on Muslims. They're always angry at us for what we've done over there, changing their power struggle, trying to put our thumb on the scale. Wouldn't it be the Pope that should be amassing this army for our conservative friends and the people on the right? I'm going back to this, our message is being hijacked. America's message is being hijacked.
Well, they still don't have one. But old popes, yes, would amass armies. New, more progressive popes, no, they're not the army pope. Like you said, like John's saying, this is the shepherd pope.
Well, not
They're
quite so
taking that
much like an
side.
army with swords and stuff, but like an army of followers.
It's already there.
creating, yeah.
But right. So the more conservative Catholics, and it's not just Catholics. I mean, it's not even mainly Catholics. It's really evangelicals who want a war against Islam. Mm-hmm. They absolutely refuse to acknowledge that people can be, Muslim and still be good people. I mean, there's the hardcore evangelicals at the base of their beliefs are, if you're Muslim, you're evil, you're going to go to hell, and frankly, you should just die now. I mean, really, honestly, a lot of their theology is in that realm. I mean, when we're talking the real Southern Baptists, especially the real hardcore evangelicals, and
Snake ones.
They've disguised their language. But they haven't really changed, what they ultimately want.
This is just a pivot. It's a pivot from the Jews to Muslims. There was the Jews before. Now it's a pivot.
Right.
And the only real difference in ideology between the tenets of Christianity and the tenets of Islam are Jesus is the Son of God. That's it. Everything else is pretty same. Jesus was a prophet. and a Messiah and showed up in the Quran.
Exactly, and that's the thing. That's the funny thing. You when you say that to some, of the real evangelicals, you go, by the way, the Quran recognizes Jesus as a prophet
And Messiah.
and a Messiah,
But not a son of God. Not actually in the
right.
language.
But he is recognized in there. You do realize it, and so it's funny when I see evangelicals, especially who talk about the Judeo-Christian view of the world, our good friends in Israel, and they try to, and you go. Meanwhile, by the way, the Jews do not recognize Jesus. In fact, emphatically say he was not the Messiah. He was not a prophet. He was not the Son of God. They go out of their way to exclude him in that realm. The Quran, on the other hand, we just mentioned, does elevate him to that status, and yet they make common cause. And I'm not. Believe me, I'm Jewish myself, so I'm not trying to say, yes, Catholics and Christians.
Oh, my dad knows Jewish.
Well, believe me, it's not that hard. So
I'll explain that one later.
So it's just, I find it ironic that they try and use this whole Judeo-Christian thing and to attack Islam as a religion, when in fact I think there is more in common. I mean, all three of these religions are connected.
Yeah, they're all Abrahamic.
I mean, exactly. And so you get the hardcores in each of them, the hardcore, Jews, the hardcore Christians, and the hardcore, Muslims who want to pretend they're all three separate, completely distinct and unrelated religions, and you go, really, when you look at the history and the theology, they're all completely linked.
I would do like a DC Comics team up, and if I were the Islam, I'd be like, hey, Christians, we're more alike than the Jews, so we should stop them. You just get all the heat off and say,
see, that's what I was trying to avoid. Shh.
Right.
We have enough shit.
You know what the big difference is, Rob? The big difference is there is one of these is on average much browner than the others.
Southern Baptists?
Well, in the summer, but they don't pick their own cotton.
I don't know what you could mean.
I know.
Rob,
It's the Muslims.
it's the Muslims on average more brown than our Christian and Jewish brothers
It was a trick question.
and sisters. No.
No, they're pretty straightforward.
No.
Yeah.
So if you live, oh man, there's if you look at a lot of real strict evangelical rules, it's pretty Sharia-like.
Yeah.
That team up would go well together if they could just get over this whole brown thing.
Well, the very people that push these anti-Sharia law things in like Oklahoma, because you're like, oh yeah, it's a real problem there in Oklahoma. Their version of what they want, it's like you just want it's the American Taliban. You just want a Christian version of Sharia law. These are the same people that say, "Oh, the country was founded on Christianity, and it should be the principles by which the government is run." And you're like, "How is it any different from Sharia law?" It's not.
Paler. It's much more pale.
and aren't those the same Puritans, the ones that are running around looking for witches? And
Oh yeah,
Probably,
still.
yeah.
These are the same people with the blonde, incredibly white, perfectly coiffed, blue-eyed Jesus hanging in there.
Oh, yeah.
In their house.
all right, so
The Nordic Jesus.
Jesus, the Viking Jesus.
so who we got to be looking out for? Is it these huge, super churches guys? The ones that bring in 50,000 at a time?
Well, they're harmless, man. They just want money.
They're not harmless. No,
But their motivation, though.
'Cause-
They're easy to spot.
they are.
We were talking about unbottling the genie, and it seems like the rhetoric has just continued on. I hear more and more about religion in the news each day,
Yep, yep.
and
And in
I want
politics,
to know who to look out for,
and specifically in politics.
Yeah,
There's
This
a Pence thing.
purposeful mixing of religion and politics. And so like these mega churches, now that the Trump administration has said they want to get rid of the rule by which religious organizations no longer are restricted from putting money into politics,
yeah.
and still retain their tax exempt status. I'm like, you know what? You churches, you can put all the money you want in politics, give up your tax exempt status. You can't have both. And they're going to get both. And that's where you're going to see these megachurches who already have been pumping money into politics through a variety of ways anyway. Now they can just openly do it. And not yet, but that's what they want. And they advocate, they're the ones that supported Trump. I mean, these are the people that voted for Trump. Knowing the kind of guy he was and not giving a shit. Not caring. Spending 8 years demonizing Obama, a guy who's obviously a faithful husband and a loving father and a practicing Christian.
At least scandal-free.
And they spent 8 years demonizing him, and they went for Trump. And you just go, really? What is the difference? Back to your melatonin test.
If Obama had tweeted out Covfefe, how do you say it?
Covfefe? Covfefe,
I don't know.
There was no way to say it.
They would have called it a Kenyan god that he was worshiping.
Yeah. Well, did you see the video of the red lights flashing out of the White House?
What's up with that?
What is that? So I posted a picture of that this morning, and then I put Covfefe in there, and I said, Covfefe must be the extraction password. I'm at the extraction point. Covfefe.
Did you hear the government line on it that there was a fire truck in the general area?
Right, it was reflecting off the window.
Reflecting off of mercury
window.
to the...
Right. Which, what? It very well may have been, but it was still a fun video. I don't care. And
No, I have a completely different theory.
Okay.
Because I have seen Rosemary's Baby a lot.
Uh-oh.
I think that Ivanka finally squirted out the Antichrist. Finally.
Well, if you take that and then the picture of him in the orb in Saudi Arabia,
he called
So
I don't get it. Did they have to do a quick rave when the Antichrist came out with the flashing
they
red
come
lights?
with lights.
Woohoo!
It's flashing red lights. That's what happens. It just happens.
I got it.
That's what the kid opened his eyes.
Oh my God.
And they're going to grow him to Kushner size quickly for once Jared gets arrested.
Right. Well, which could be any day now.
There's another. We're flipping topics like that.
Yeah, let's
talk about
trend
my
back
favorite.
there.
My favorite faux Democrat Jew, Jared Kushner.
God. Setting up a back channel now. We know
for
that,
Dickin.
Yeah. So 2 months after the FBI had publicly said the Russians were interfering in the election, 2 months after, he goes to the Russian embassy and asks to use their secure equipment to reach back to the Kremlin. By the way, the Kremlin, this is an interesting thing, the Kremlin said no. Because they were like, no, this is our fucking top secret equipment. You're not getting in at it. They're smart enough to maintain security.
See, the Kremlin. They're much smarter. Kushner and Trump. They're average Batman villains.
Oh my God!
They will do the stupidest things. They will explain their entire plan because they think that they're beyond reproach. Nothing can touch us now. And the Kremlin are real villains, like real criminals that are really good at it. So they're like, well, no, how can people not know you've done this at some point? You're an idiot. Stick to real estate. Rip people off that way. This whole stealing a country thing, this is not for you.
Yeah, it does seem that way sometimes. It's like they just got a little uppity, that they're trying.
We're untouchable. I'm the president.
Yeah.
I don't know where that came from.
I don't know either.
Dick 'em!
It's okay. Dick 'em!
I'm throwing dick around like it's going out of style. Look at these hands, Dick. Yeah!
So the question now with Kushner is naive, or I don't think he's naive.
No.
I don't think, and not only that, because this is where Flynn comes in, by the way, because Flynn was in the room with Kushner when this was discussed, and so this is all part of the Flynn thing.
And this is where I beat my head against the wall for these people who are like, "Oh, where's the proof?" I mean, how many connections do you have to have before it's making itself obvious?
You need a red hand or a smoking gun for them.
Every single one of these has got dirty deals behind him. And Kushner's father went to jail from Christie. I mean, Christie put him in jail. You got to be really dirty for Christie to put you in jail.
Which let's remind people, which is why Christie was purged from the transition.
Right.
That once it was, once Kushner had his opportunity, that was paying back an old debt. I mean, fuck you. That's from Dad. Get out.
We have installed a a mafia of sorts. I mean, it's
Of sorts? No, it's a straight up mafia.
Well, I would say of sorts because they're really they've kept small. You know, they kept to their family only, maybe a few outside sources, whereas the mafia can go in and basically has the basically the system in place to get everybody on board.
But it all starts
You
with
know?
family, too, you know.
Yes.
It's family centric.
And I
with
think-
capos around. And that's essentially what they've done. And that's how they've run their businesses, though, too.
Right, and I think they're expanding their empire right now. And,
Trying poorly.
You know, and they're really doing some weird things around the world because they've had good success in these countries where other U.S. companies have not had success. So they therefore have already had a meeting with this crazy guy in Iran, or you know, they have these legwork is planned out already, and they're going with what they already have in place from their real estate business, which is completely opposite of every foreign policy that the American government has had in place
Right.
for the last 100 years.
And it's gonna trickle down even more, because the trickle down douchebaggery is the only trickle down that actually hits people, and it's gonna when this stuff really starts to hit hardcore conservatives, they'll be like, oh wow.
Yeah. Just in, CNN has fired Kathy Griffin. Thank you.
Wow.
Yeah.
for the dead
Yeah. Well, you know.
bloody head photo.
It was, it was art, but it was. As soon as I saw it, I'm like, that's not going to turn out well for her.
No.
I was like, that's not going to. No, sorry. Although I do say, where's Milo Yiannopoulos and all the other free speechers who, we should be allowed to say whatever you want. And now they're largely the ones like, oh, she's going to get fired.
She was allowed to say whatever she wanted.
Well,
And this is because those of us who generally on the left who have actually read the First Amendment know that she will not be prosecuted for this, possibly.
well,
in the normal
Currently.
world, under this present Constitution, but it can't. Doesn't mean your job can't say you're an asshole. Gone.
Yeah, she can do all the art she wants on her own internet channel now.
Exactly. Like Bill O'Reilly.
Yep.
You can molest all. Oh wait, no, that's still illegal. All right, sorry, bad analogy.
well,
When's Hannity gone?
Yeah, did Hannity come back yet? I haven't.
Yeah, I think, he's
I
back
think he
from
did, and even brought back one of his big advertisers.
He's back from his Dick Batical.
Did he stop doing that story yet?
Yeah, I think
Anybody know?
only because in and of itself it ran out of gas, but that doesn't mean he won't be, doing the same thing. Look, the whole notion that Fox cares at all about any kind of integrity or journalism, please shut up. I mean, they let O'Reilly rant on for, 15 years, for 20 years, frankly. Knowing full well that he was full of shit and lying almost every night. They don't care.
Maybe when Ailes died, the curse was lifted.
Ailes dying made a big difference. If Ailes hadn't died, O'Reilly would still be there. No doubt about it.
It was after he got booted.
Yeah.
What?
He died.
Well, but he was out.
Yeah.
Remember, but you're right. It's not his death, but it's more that he was
His
removed.
ejection,
Yeah.
I think when Ailes died, though, this giant curse was lifted. Like when you killed the head vampire, all the other people turned back. They're like, oh, I'm human again. Maybe that's what might happen.
Yeah. I think that's what they just wait for, is they just keep going back. If it's something they don't like for that day, they just know there'll be another rant another day. I'll just keep coming back. And
You mean the viewers?
The viewers and the people who are supporting the guy, the advertisers, really. They're the ones who really are the head scratchers in my book. I mean, they're going after the money, but it's this whole follow the money thing that I've been going after for 2 years now. That people really do have to understand where and how they spend their dollars. I mean, we are becoming very close to slavery here, and if we don't buck up and stop fighting amongst ourselves and start fighting up the chain to the people who are trying to oppress us and turn us into the next Russia or turn us into something that we're not accustomed to, things are going to get ugly,
They already are ugly.
Well, I think they can get even worse. But
They're going to get worse.
Oh, yeah.
There's
going to be a trend of violence soon.
Well, there already was. Look what happened in Portland over the weekend.
Yeah.
These
and
two
people
guys
supporting. I thought,
Because
it's unbelievable.
they
So
were white.
of course. And this is, basically these guys come to the aid of the two presumably Muslim women who are being harassed by this guy on public transit, and he, slits their throats and kills them. And of course, he was in court the other day, and he's, ranting on about, it's patriotism and free speech, and I'm like, you know what? Shut up.
yeah, I felt kind of vindicated with that. That was my statement last week. Is they are hijacking what it means to be a
Right.
patriot. Well, what it means to be an American, and somebody has to stand up and say, no, that's wrong.
The
This
Patriots
is
were
right.
the two guys that stood up for those
Yeah.
women and unfortunately paid with their lives. One of them, by the way, on Memorial Day weekend was a U.S. Army veteran.
Well, look at the soundbite we're left with, though, is we got this idiot claiming to be
Right.
a patriot, and that's a soundbite that's been played
but does it
millions of
resonate?
times now.
No, largely it
It
doesn't.
doesn't largely resonate.
No, but-
to the people that would already believe it, yeah. I don't think any new fans were made.
To kind of circle back, I do think this is that toxic mix of government, conspiracy, God, religion, and that's. It used to be an underground thing. You used to hear about it in the South. Oh, you stay away. That's KKK town. That's a Knight Rider town.
Don't drive through
Don't
Howell.
do that. Yeah, I mean,
South
I used to hear that, and
Just
I used to
Howell.
hear that when I was a kid. Don't go out to Howell after dark. We were from Novi. It was way different there.
That's number 6.
We had lights.
He's a ginger. That's close enough.
One stoplight, but there was street lights.
He is so pale, he's almost on the other side of black. He's closer than us, kill him.
He's trying to hide something.
He's like getting to China via Hawaii instead of New York.
So I guess that's what I'm beating around the bush at, is that's the only message I can come up with that will combat all of that mixed up toxic brew that those people
But they're
ingest.
still going to believe it. If the believers are always going to believe. We saw that every time Trump does something stupid, people double down. The hardcores double down. You can't get rid of your worldview because that means you were wrong.
Right.
You have to double down.
Right.
It's psychology. It's basic psychology.
Right. There was an article in the Free Press, Detroit Free Press, over the weekend, talking to Trump supporters, and it was profiling a few of them. Two in particular that I was interested in: auto workers, both of them, union members, and they both said, that they voted for Trump because he was going to turn things around and make America great again, and they bought into all of that. And one of them was just was just impervious to any kind of fact or reality. It didn't matter what you said. It was never Trump's fault, and Trump is following through on his promises. And the other guy, you could sort of tell, was sort of like, basically saying, well, I wish he would stop tweeting, and I wish he would get to work and do what he said he was going to do. And so you could read between the lines, like, there was some doubt seeping in on this guy, at least. And I think that just as representative of the Trump supporters at large, I think there is a group of people that still support him, but they can't deny some of the stupider things that he does in tweets, like Covfefe or whatever, and they're like, oh, God. But then there's that other group that they're just impervious. They are the 27%, as I refer to them, which is the number of people that still supported Richard Nixon when he was impeached. Like, you can never go below that number. Like, you're always going to have that. It just doesn't matter what you do. You're going to have that base. And the thing is that both of these guys were saying that a lot of what they felt was the problem wasn't Trump. It was all the people opposing him. If we would all, and you just go, really? And their notion was, if we would all just get in line and stop opposing him, then America would be great again. And you're like, you realize that's totally the antithesis of America and what it stands for, right?
Back to my point of is that's the
then I got to show them what antithesis
perverted
means.
message that they're putting out there that being ruled is what being an American
Absolutely.
is.
I don't think
And
it's not a message.
I just can't
it's
fathom it.
easier. It's not the fact that it's a message that everyone's ascribing to. It's simply easier. There's less work when you're ruled.
Yep.
It's a much simpler way of living. Here's an analogy.
Yeah.
So I assign an essay for class. So I've got 20 students in the class, and there's an essay coming up. Like, I need 3 paragraphs on anything you want. Any living person in the world that inspires you, or dead, or fictional, or whatever, give me 3 paragraphs why that particular person inspires you. Pretty simple, right? You would have 10 ideas right off the bat that you could want to do. There is a good 30 to 40% of a class who won't do the assignment because they can't decide. I haven't handed them exactly what to write about.
That's scary, David.
Yeah.
And it's been going, it fluctuates up and down, so I would say, but that 27% sounds reasonable. I haven't had a scientific study, but I would say on average, 27% of a class just
Now,
can't.
is there a third that excel? Like, take that and, give them 8 paragraphs and really go to town on it and tell you their whole life
That's right
story.
around 20%. 20% of the class is really big overachievers. There's a large middle ground where they're going to do the bare minimum or struggle a little bit, but there is a large component that just can't handle choice.
I wonder if that has changed over time. If there's data out there, I will have to look that up.
I don't know if it's ever been studied.
That mix of. But
I can remember that when I was in class, there was people like that still. They just couldn't decide. They couldn't do anything because they had to have it handed to them.
Right. And kind of brings me back to the Elizabeth Warren story of that's how she got to be where she was, is someone from a class above her laid out a hand and helped her into that class. We're going back to the aid and how much cost was saved by not having Elizabeth Warren be in poverty and be a senator instead.
Right.
That whole cycle goes round and round, so I would like to know if there's some weird thing, and I would like to ascribe our message to that. Let's help America up, not be great again, just anybody who wants to move up can.
But there's the want. Yeah. That's what I'm telling you. Right. There's no want.
There's no want because there's a complete lack of understanding, a complete lack of knowledge of what the country is. People go, we're a democracy. Actually, we're a republic.
Not even that. It's even more based. Like that analogy.
I agree. Oh, no. I agree. It goes deeper.
Lack of them. It's not even, I don't even think it's lazy because, these kids will, give them a task, like clean my car. They will kill themselves to clean the car well.
Because they know how and they know
They know how. They know there's things they have to do. But if I say, go out and if say it's a film class, go out and choose a short story from the internet that you want to make into a movie. Dead for weeks. Can't move.
Right.
Because it's a choice.
Okay. Right. That's the base level. But I do think that there is, for people to go back to your issue about patriotism,
right.
And this guy in Portland claiming patriotism, like this is what America is founded on,
right.
and to have no fucking clue about what America was really founded on, to have no actual knowledge of the history that led to the creation of this country, how we, over time, that it wasn't just something that happened overnight. I mean, the notion that we get from history is that the people were sitting around drinking tea until 1776, and they said, fuck this tea, and they threw it in the ocean, and then they all got guns, and they said, fuck you, George, and they kicked all the redcoats out, and they went, yay, we have a country. Hey, let's all vote for each other. Okay. And that's the creation of the American Republic. And you go, no. This was a long process that took over time, and the concepts that went into the building of this country, and then subsequently to the institutions that we value today that are now being drained of their power by Trump and his ilk. This is the tragedy. This is what we're seeing happen. We're seeing it's like watching a relative slowly be strangled to death. Somebody's put a cord around their neck, and they're not really, but it's just never tightening it around them. The air is,
this is deeper than, this goes before Trump, too.
Yeah. Clearly.
This lack of attention and lack of it's a lack of ambition, too.
Right.
It's much easier to be controlled. And that's where helicopter parenting is so prevalent right now. I know students that don't even make decisions about where they live, what they eat, what they wear in the morning. They'll call mom. I swear to you.
See, that's a societal issue that we're dealing with. That's a generational issue.
In large part, it's a generational issue to a certain point. But it's systemic from the critical thinking.
Right. But so from that systemic, you're right. That's at the base. That's at the very base of our dysfunction. And then on top of it, we've built this, or are sustaining this model of lack of knowledge. I mean, of a lack of history, a lack of perspective. I was just talking about the creation of the American Republic. That's actually the name of a great book called The Creation of the American Republic by Gordon Wood. Awesome historian, talking about and I think it's 1776 to 1787. And so you think when you read this book, and I remember reading this in college, and I've read it again twice since then because it's such a good book. You think it's like it's written in a historical style of like in 1776 this happened, and in 1777 this happened, and it's like not that at all. In that book, he deals again with the concepts of what this nation was founded on and how we took British common law and we adapted it to our colonial experience and how certain things came to be and how consent of the governed and all these issues. So I'm not trying to go off into a history lesson, but it's just this lack of awareness of understanding of like the foundational principles by which this country was built on. If you have any awareness of that, there's no way you could support Donald Trump. There's none. Zero. So the people that support Donald Trump, they have no awareness of this. They're either willfully ignorant or they just don't know. And they don't understand how the country, or they listen to these false historians, revisionist historians who try to rejigger history to say that the founding fathers were all, basically, Christian, fundamentalists almost. No. And so what we're left with is we have this. So David, your base dysfunction of a generation of people who cannot make a decision.
A full society.
You're right, it is beyond generational. But cannot make a decision for themselves. They want to be governed. They want to be ruled. They want to be told what to do. And then we have leaders who don't even understand how dangerous that is. They instead go, well, that makes my job easier. I can just tell, or they do. I can just tell them what to do. It's easy. I don't want to hear from these people. And then we see that play out with like the whole issue over, Obamacare.
Ooh, the town halls.
These town hall meetings where these public servants, these elected officials, they absolutely do not care what fucking people are telling them.
And they don't
care.
They don't get it when people are angry either. Like,
right.
The incredulous congressman. Like, how can you be angry? I do everything well. I do everything right. And that's a big issue too, because they're so. I think there's a good message. The message is out there. People don't want it. Well, because there's work. It's hard work.
I mean,
it's hard work.
Back to John's history lesson there was a very easy message there: taxation without representation. That's what was happening? I think you can boil it all down to that. They were, creating this new land, and somebody was coming along and wanted to take out of their thing, out of their kitty. That was a very easy message to get across to many different people across the countryside. Hey, don't you hate your taxes? Yes, I hate my taxes. Let's fight against our taxes. I think right now what we have, and why I wanted to see the numbers on if it is actually declining, is an actual, people can call it a conspiracy. I think it's just a plot to get a slave race, get a working class that will be ruled in America. I mean, once that happens, what will stop the corporations of the world from doing anything? It's not
a conspiracy or a plot. This is a trend, and the best business people in the world see trends and then pick up on it.
Well, right, but those trends, and I'm not saying it's a widespread conspiracy, but a conspiracy can be between two people. Hey, think tank guy, start up this, line of bullshit that I can go spew. I'm now part of a conspiracy. I mean, and I really do think that somebody along the line has said, why are we educating people so well? Why are we giving them this education that allows them to be angered by what we do? And I just don't think it's like multi-company, but I do think that there are people, who are creating the education policies, the people who are creating. I mean, look at what DeVos is doing. You know, we want more religion in our education
40
system.
years before DeVos, though.
Well,
this has been going on. This is
probably longer than that.
I don't believe in the conspiracy. I believe that this is what people normally are lazy, and they will go, if they are given the opportunity, they will not work hard for something. They will take the easiest route. They will go the laziest route. And,
Okay.
It's true. You know, you've hired people before.
Sure, no, I'm with you.
In general, and seeing that there's this and that's a vast majority of people. You know, there's not many true leaders in the world. We're not set up to create leaders. Most countries aren't. So it's a matter of people assimilating and just becoming the great big mass.
All right, here's where my conspiracy comes in. Is don't you think at some time in the past, think of war bonds time, where the vision of patriotism was different. You would go into the army and you learn new skills. Your wife might go to work while you're in the army during World War II. You're learning new things, and then that was to benefit your country and your.
It was to look at the money. It all goes back to the money again. So we need shit that the men aren't here to do. Gosh dang it! Well, let's make them learn new things.
Right.
And when the men come back, we'll just fire them all.
Right.
You know, it's not patriotism is if we're taking that kind of tack on it, it's all about, you know, who can benefit, you know, me, whoever's in power the most. You know, that's what it's always been.
Right. Yeah, okay. So I think that, but I think, Rob, to pick up on your point about creating this underclass of servant-based people by keeping them dumb, basically, providing them few opportunities to advance so that they're sort of stuck in a position. I mean, that's feudalism.
Right.
I mean, really, that's, in a sense, it's kind of going back towards what makes, not just America, but what does make the Western world is the middle class, the notion of a middle class.
Right.
I mean, there's always going to be rich people and powerful people, and there's always going to be poor people. It's just to say, as a society, to say, let's take some of the poor people and some of the rich people and put them in the middle. All right, and those folks that having that mediating influence, because it's the middle class by which people can transfer from the poor to the rich, is through that middle class. That's the structure by which that can happen. So, you know, there was a great TED Talk a couple years ago as a tech billionaire, is Nick Hanauer. And it was funny because he said, and he did it was funny, but it was very moving, I thought very telling talk where he talked about, I'm addressing my fellow plutocrats, and he was talking about how he had invested in Amazon.com early on, and he goes, now I own a big yacht. And he's like, I'm not a smart guy, I don't code, I just made the right decision at the right time and invested I'm a billionaire. And he said, basically what he talked about was, here's what I see for our fellow plutocrats. I see pitchforks coming. Mm-hmm. And this is the blind side that I think that the people like DeVos and all these others who they just want to enrich, and they don't care what happens on the other side of that. All they know is they've got their shit on this side. What happens on the other side, they don't care. Oh, that's your fucking problem. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, what Nick Hanauer did, I think very funny, but also very to the point, saying, you know, what you are doing is you are creating the atmosphere, you are creating the conditions by which a revolution will occur. A real revolution. A pitchfork, fucking kill 'em all revolution.
Right,
not a political revolution, okay, like the revolution that was the American Revolution, which was largely a political revolution. Yes, there was a war fought, but that was largely a political revolution. We're talking about a real revolution, like the French Revolution. Cut their fucking heads off.
Right. Well, you push people out of the middle class downward. They are not happy.
You destroy the middle class.
Right.
You suck it dry and watch it wither on the vine.
And that's what
this is where we're heading. It's so short-sighted. It's so blind to the realities to think that they can continue this forever without any consequence. And I'm not advocating revolution. All I'm saying is that, you know, if we continue to allow this to happen, it's inevitable at some point. Not in the near future, but not that far down the road either. And so the notion of stopping Trump, it goes beyond the political. Because this is not political. It's not, oh, Trump's a conservative and he wants to cut the budget. Yeah, I don't want to cut the budget either, and I don't want to, zero out, the Great Lakes Initiative, and I don't want to zero out, environmental issues, and I don't want to, of course not. But this is beyond all that, and that's where this all gets lost, is people think this is this is beyond politics.
And it's all under the assumption that people actually don't want to be ruled in a feudal system.
Yeah, well, and that could be the incorrect assumption. I hear you, David. But
that's what scares me.
I don't think Ike believes in that. I mean, when people say "Make America Great," I mean that's initially what I envision that they're after is that post-war era, with Ike building highways and a house going up every block.
Oh, absolutely.
Everybody
and
had their 2-bedroom, and white people everywhere, and white people being, actually pretty racially segregationalist to the black people, to keeping them all in their little corners of the world. That's what they want to go back to. Mm-hmm. But that's my point. Is like the message was completely different then. It was all about it was all about bettering yourself to get up this ladder. When was the last television commercial you saw with like a young housewife just moving into her new home with new appliances? I mean, that was what was on TV. That was what was aspirational for people to have then. Now it's a completely different world, and they're just trying to sell you their product. It's not like a whole package of the American dream.
That was a false American dream to begin with. It wasn't sustainable. If we put that ad on today, I would be pissed because I can't do that. I work my freaking ass off, and I'll never be able to retire. It's a different world, so the message can't resonate. And lo and behold, but that message was totally self-serving for the companies as well.
Yeah.
They were. She walked into her new appliances. They were more subtle about it then.
Right.
It was all Whirlpool.
Yeah.
You watch a movie with Cary Grant. He only drives the new Ford cars. And they didn't point it out, but it was there.
I guess that's my point. Is it's just a nuanced message. I mean, it's just a very small change that has happened, and I'd like to get back on the positive.
Right, but when you
could happen,
but I think
dead.
I think you hit something entirely true, which is that I think for a lot of Trump supporters, when they heard "Make America Great Again," you're right. They hark back to the 50s and 60s of America.
Mm-hmm.
And and the funny thing is when you look back on, say, the Eisenhower years or whatever, that 50s America where Dad was he ruled the roost, Mom didn't work, and there was no such thing as birth control, and and everybody was white, and except those that weren't, and they didn't count, so fuck them. And but when you look back at it, you go, okay. So when America was great in your mind, also the rich were paying 90% taxes. The tax rate at that time was 92% under Eisenhower. Mm-hmm. And then Eisenhower made the largest ever investment of the federal government to create the interstate highway system. Genius, putting people to work. Thousands of people for something that was productive. Not a fucking wall, but a road that could take you from one place to another. Not a wall that would keep you from going one place to the other, but a road. Roads for everybody. So you think back and you go, why do you think it was great? Because there was more equity in our society. There was a strong and thriving middle class. We were investing government tax dollars in infrastructure. That's what made America great. Those were the core things at the base of it that made America great. We don't do any of that anymore. None of it. Yeah. None of it.
Well, it was a corruption of the message anyway. The people that want to make America great again and see that 50s, that's rose-colored Mad Men
of course
stuff.
It is.
They don't know. They weren't there.
Well, they weren't there. You're right. But I'm just saying, but America, where everyone worked, where there was a low unemployment and everybody worked and everybody had a good job and your future was bright and your kids were going to do better than you were, and that was true for a certain while. It's no longer true. But again, this was when America was investing in itself. This was when America had more equity, and there was a strong, thriving middle class. And we've moved away from that. But
But my point is it's a messaging thing too. Is they've taken that now and turned that into the Mexican came and took your job, or somebody, you know.
Absolutely.
It isn't, hey, your company just screwed you over.
Right.
You know, it isn't the shareholders needed more profit, so we cut 10,000 jobs. That is never the message from our side.
Right.
And I do believe that is because people on our side are taking money from these large corporations as well, so they can't come out with that message. So that is my big thing, is it's got to be a populist movement. It's got to be something that everybody can get around. And I do think that if you were to ask them if Obama or even if Clinton or even Reagan, Saint Reagan, if Saint Reagan did any of the stuff that Donnie Trump is doing, would you still be on board? And I think what it is right now is the message has been changed to this is what America is, and you should be fearful and you should be scared so that we can control you. And we don't have a counter message. We don't have a bright rainbow.
Okay.
That says this is what you're aiming towards.
But that's exactly, it's fear versus hope.
Yeah.
So 50s and 60s, if you were a middle class American and white, you had hope. Okay, there was hope for the future. Now you're being, and that hope, by the way, was something that was given to you by your leaders. Your leaders provided you hope. They gave you hope. They gave you a faith in the future. Now our leaders provide us fear.
Yeah.
They make us fear the future because they can use that fear to their purposes. That's what we get. It's hope versus fear.
But hope didn't resonate in the last administration for the same people that wouldn't accept the message.
Right. Oh,
I mean, that was all about that was on task and on point.
Well, but
and it came out of a black guy. I guarantee that.
Well, yeah,
that didn't help.
Well, because you were only getting that message from one half of the government. In other words, you had one party advocating hope and the other party saying, fuck that, you should be afraid.
And I saw that as like a turning point for the right, is they had the excuse of, yes, I understand that sounds ridiculous, but it's a black guy doing it, so I'll believe it. It's kind of like
right,
the turning point is they were given permission to turn off their brain and believe whatever the right was saying. I mean, at one point, I do remember Fox News, they had viewers that would call them out on fake stories. When they first came out, they would have angry viewers because there was more people viewing that weren't just from the right. Now, they'll just scoop it up, and I do think that the Obama presidency was the turning point of them really turning down the wormhole. You know.
Well, now I see. You know, here's the sad thing. What makes me infuriated now is I see not almost as much, but an increasing amount of fake news coming from what would be the left.
Right.
And I said the left.
Yeah.
And,
no, I understand. Yeah.
Got a boom. Hey, who's on first? No. The point being that. This whole notion of fake because, and it's not, when I say fake news, I don't even know that it's necessarily generated purposefully, as opposed to sites that would clearly be, you would look at it and you go, that's parody. Mm-hmm. That's a joke. That's a fake website. That's clearly somebody's, but people share it because it just, they don't even read it. And I'm talking about progressives, people on the left, it's anti-Trump, boom, shared. They don't even read it.
Well,
look at it. It's clearly fake.
Well, even the one thing that
and they just share, done.
Like the two,
and that's what everyone advocated for before. Fire with fire. Do whatever. You know, obstruct or do anything that makes fun of them. You know, ridicule.
So it's
a game book,
right? And it's unfortunate. And I'm trying. And look, I'm trying to mediate, not moderate, but mediate my opposition to Trump and the rest to. Let's be specific. Yeah, he's worthy of mocking, and I'm not saying people shouldn't have fun in mocking. When the guy puts out Covfefe, you know, I mean, come on. You're going to have some fun with that.
At least he owned it.
You know, he did. Although, yeah, whatever.
In I did it on purpose kind of way.
Yeah, I know.
I didn't fall down. I didn't fall down.
Pretty much, that's exactly what it was. So, yeah, I'm not saying the guy can't be mocked. I'm just saying that when it comes to the actual opposition points, we have to be on point. Okay, we've got to, you know, talk about the actual issues and be on point and be factual and be better than the other side. And that's
a large reason why Obama was successful, thank you, English, as he was, is that's what they did. Mm-hmm. They honed it on the birth certificate and Kenyan gods and just stupidity.
Jade Helm. Can you imagine if like the left went crazy if that story came out in Reagan's time? Oh, Reagan's gonna take over Texas.
It came out now.
But I
But let's say Trump
just,
had under Trump, it would have been the left would have done the same thing the right did.
That's I think that
100%.
If we created, we should maybe make an experiment.
We should try.
If we created a story that said Trump was going to do some Jade Helm type bullshit, and see if we can get how far we can get that sucker to go. I don't really want to do that because there's enough shit out there
Seattle?
as it is. But you'd almost be like, how far would it go?
Chicago.
Before people just like,
Southern
oh,
Illinois.
that's it. They would believe it and send it, and it's like that. This is the thing I really fear. I don't fear brown people. Okay, I don't fear Muslims. I fear fake news. That's what I really fear. Mm-hmm. I fear disinformation, not misinformation. Disinformation. That's what I fear.
And it's all to gain that power over you. And that's where I keep going back to this is the disinformation is it right out of the playbook, out of many dictators' playbook. I mean, that's how it all starts.
Yeah.
Is you don't know who to believe, and then pretty soon you can't even believe your own side or your own friend or the newscasters, or you just don't know who to believe anymore, and that slowly but surely takes away your own freedoms, your own powers. And that is the shame, is there's nobody standing on a chair right now going, hey, anybody see this going on?
Who'd believe him?
Yeah,
Why would I believe him then?
Yeah, there's no proof. There's no proof.
No, but again, this is nothing new. This is Nero's Rome in disinformation.
So are you saying that where we're at, David, is the point right now where people are just grabbing all they can before the rebirth, I guess, before the new ruler comes in?
It's not even people are grabbing all they can. It's people who are slightly more with it and slightly less ethical are seeing ways to enrich themselves. And very easily.
Right. And they don't, because there is no, again, we touched upon this last week, there is no civic spirit. They don't care.
Right.
That it's denigrating the very nation and society in which they live. They don't care. I got mine, Jack, fuck you. And they don't care that they, look, it goes back to the guy that, and we talked about him previously, who created one of the big fake web news sites from the last election, and it turned out he was making so much. He knew it was wrong. He was a guy who voted for Clinton. He was a progressive, and he started one of these fake news sites, and he did it as a way. Originally, he thought to mock Trump supporters, and then when he realized he could make money at it, he said, "Fuck it," and he went and made shit ton of money. And he was making too good of money. And when they finally caught up with him, and the reporters came to him, and he was like, he was kind of embarrassed, but not embarrassed enough to stop doing it. Because he was making all kinds of money. That's a progressive who was pushing forth fake shit that people used to then psych themselves into voting for Donald Trump. And now we have, and this guy didn't care. He was making his money. I don't give a shit. I couldn't live with myself doing that. But I'm a better person, so.
And broke.
Yeah. So where does
So let's see.
where's the
give you a bunch
civics
of money, see what
class come
happens.
from? Where does the civics class come from then?
Yeah.
I mean, if we leave it up to DeVos, it'll be
no.
Jesus is our.
We left it up to everybody for the past 30 years, and it's slowly gone away.
Yeah. So who was our? I mean, I can't even remember my civics teacher's name.
I didn't have civics class.
You didn't have one?
I grew up here, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I really had a formal civics class. It was
call it
already kind
civics,
of on the
it was
way out.
government.
Well, it was government. And then we talked about last week. There's a difference between civics and government. And maybe what was you know what I did? Okay, so when I think about it, I did have a U.S. government course, but it covered civics. It wasn't called civics, but it did cover the essence of what was civics in that course as well. So it taught you about the three branches of government and all that stuff, and the difference between a democracy and a republican, whatever. But it also did talk about civics. So, but that's all been complete. That's all gone. That's all gone. Kids don't learn about that shit.
Civics are like sex ed around here. They have to be handled at home.
Oh my god.
So no one's offended.
No, well, you look at around here. If it's a hand-me-down stuff, then your concepts of how the government works and your responsibility.
Yep.
We're giving them. This is perpetuating.
It's like religion.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting. Your concepts of how the government works. Let's face it. Our religion is based on who we were born to. Mostly. Mm-hmm. Very few of us have made a choice to do something different. Many have, but I'm just saying, most of us, you're born into a Christian family, you're a Christian. You celebrate Christmas, that's what you celebrate Christmas. You celebrate Hanukkah because you're born into it. Right. And so our religion is based on solely who we were born to. I think our politics, to a large extent, are the same way. Mm-hmm. So very few people, not enough, I shouldn't say very few, not enough people can say, I was raised here, but I did my own fact checking and said, fuck that.
And most Americans don't go out of their cultural starting point anyway.
Right.
Very few move.
No, yeah. Because it's uncomfortable.
It's difficult.
And it's difficult. You're right. And that's where it goes back to what you were saying, David, about if you have to make a choice, if you have to do anything difficult, you're not going to do it.
Like, I don't want to be a Christian anymore. I want to be a Buddhist. And give up Christmas. Well, shit.
Get lots of good stuff at Christmas.
That's a tough deal.
All right.
All right.
But wait a minute.
You can have this better job if you move 100 miles away. Ooh. I don't know. I know how to get around here already. Yeah. That's what people
I've
think.
I've actually had that argument before, so that is real. That's real. I know how to get around here. I mean, that's a real thing.
It's a thing. I would come back from school and I'd be made fun of. They call me college boy. What are you doing that for? Like, I either don't want to work in a body shop or be impregnated by someone who works in a body shop. And it's just not my cup of tea. Not going to be doing it.
Now I have a visual of you being impregnated by a mechanic, but anyway.
No, a car artist.
I'm sorry.
A cartist.
Okay.
Not just anybody.
Well, all right. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to lower your standards, eh?
That's okay. There's some dicking going on.
I've been crying over you, crying over you. Said so long, left me standing all alone and crying.
Subscribe to the No Cry Zone on iTunes and Stitcher and at abnormalentertainment.com/No Cry Zone. Find the No Cry Zone on Facebook and tweet at No Cry Zone. Email nocryzonepodcast@gmail.com. And for more podcasts, comics, books, movies, and more, head to abnormalentertainment.com.
You've been listening to the Abnormal Entertainment Network.